Very nice to meet you too.
Hi,
Here we
hello,
are.
good to see you.
Oh, all right. Let me adjust my setting for
Yeah,
a bit.
let's adjust. And
Right.
okay. Yes, I am. Yeah. So I'm adjusting the last things. Then when you're ready, you tell me so that we can go live. And we will do half an hour, 40 minutes, then based on, what we have to talk about. And feel free to add anything you like to this talk. And can you hear me well?
I can hear you very well. I was just switching on the cranking up the volume. Go.
Perfect.
All right. So I'm sorry, didn't catch your name. Anna?
Sorry, yes, I'm Anna, yes.
Anna. Okay.
I'm Anna. You were in contact with Iris, right?
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Thank you for this initiative. I think it's really, really good that you're doing this because it's such a nice way to engage and connect with other makers.
Yeah, it is. It is. And also today we had also some interesting talks between yesterday and today with other artists. And it's always interesting to compare and to see their approach and their views on these topics.
Nice.
So, perfect. So
right.
we can start and we can go live.
Right.
And yes. So, hi everybody. Today I'm sitting here with Jochem Rotteveel, and he's an artist based in Rotterdam. And we're going to talk about remarkable materials, and you're indeed using a few remarkable materials, which you're going to talk about today. We're going also to talk about your art. And so I leave the floor to you. And first question is, could you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
All right. So yeah, I'm Jochem Rotteveel. I'm a visual artist here in the Netherlands. I create work with plastic foil and tape. And I started off with tape 12 years ago. I graduated from art school, and I was searching for this material that I could paint with because I was always very intrigued by painting and by the composition and color aspect. But oil paint and acrylics wasn't really my kind of material. So I was looking for other materials, and then I stumbled on tape as I was making this large installation with call it landbouw plastic, but it's like the fabric that you use in agriculture. And I was applying the tape to the wall, and I saw this beautiful line. I thought that was coming from the tape, and I thought, wow, this is a very nice way to actually create the visual aspects of paint, but then with another material. So I started exploring some more, and then my teacher said, well, this material is never going to last, and it's a bit of a hoax. So why don't you leave it alone? And then I thought, oh, this is definitely worth investigating, because if people tell you not to, then obviously you have something valuable. So then I started exploring some more, and as I progressed there, luckily the color palette became broader, because when I started, the color palette was very limited. You only had gray and black and brown, so I was limited in the composition that I could make. But as I progressed, the color palette actually broadened, and then there came in the bright colors and everything. So, and I've been working with tape for I think 5 or 6 years, and at one point I found that I sort of hit a wall. I wasn't able to get out of it as much as I was used to. So then I decided to give myself a year to explore other materials, to basically just be in my studio and experiment. I canceled shows, and I really wanted to get back to basics and get in touch with what was actually driving me as an artist. So and then funnily, I stumbled upon foil, which is basically tape extra large, but I didn't really know it at the time. So I stumbled upon foil, and then I thought, oh, this is interesting, because I can do so much more with foil. I can use it as a way to paint with it, and it also has the sculptural effect and the sculptural qualities of sculptural materials. So I started using foil, and the composition became, I think, more balanced and more not as intense and as hectic as the tape compositions. And I wanted to include creases and folding in the material because I wanted to actually tell the viewer this is the material. So that's what I also did with tape. By folding it, I could actually show you, what the material is about. Because if I put it flat on the wall or on the divan panel, then you have to guess. Like it could easily be metallic or any other material. So I thought, well, maybe if I put some creases in there, then the material sort of like comes to you, and then you can see it and maybe understand it better. And so that's how I came to work with foil.
Yeah. Do you have any specific inspiration that led you to this exploration of materials?
I draw inspiration from many of things. I draw inspiration from fashion, from designers. I draw inspiration from painters. So I have lots of contemporary, but also modern painters that I really like. If I look at the color scheme, for instance, in the fashion industry, there's some really interesting designers that have very interesting color schemes. And what's really great interest to me about color schemes is that I'm not able to blend the colors, right? I mean, I cannot blend colors like a painter can. So I have to find ways to actually blend the colors visually. So that's why I combine colors that may be a bit off contrast. Either they're 100% contrast or they are very slight contrast, so that your eye is actually going back and forth thinking, it looks like petrol. And then it goes back to, what is that? Is that lime green or white? And then it goes back to, is that dark gray? No. And then, you think it's dark gray, and then you see, oh, it's mint green. And then you go back to the petrol. And I mean, it goes back and forth. And then that's what I like. So I'm not able to blend it myself, but I'm hoping that by combining it, you are able to visually blend the color.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I noticed as well. Looking at your works, it's almost as if you can see that there are different blocks of color, but still the folds somehow create this complete image.
And that's why the folds are also there. The folds actually draw your eyes from
exactly.
one side to the other. And then by doing that, the colors blend. So you have this going back and forth. And that's also an inspiration. I think it was Diana Vreeland who said the eye has to wander. And I believe that's exactly what it has to do. Like you have to go back and forth and thinking like, what am I looking at? What is this material? What is this color? Because if you look at colors, if you really look closely at colors, you see that what you think is green or what you think is red sometimes becomes dark gray when it's combined with something else. So I think it's just really interesting to see what you make of colors and how colors actually enter your eyeballs and then enter your brains. And I think someone who's doing an excellent job right now in the TAC Center in Eindhoven is Stella Verdult. And Stella Verdult is she's a maker, and she's an artist, and she creates work around the idea that no color is exactly under its label. So you can think of red as red, but then there's also a red that is slightly orange, and then when you look at orange, there's always a bit of red in there. So if someone's listening and you want to go to Eindhoven, then you should check it out, because
really definitely sounds interesting. Yeah. So you have this kind of exploration that goes, I'd say, in between art and or something more like painting and sculpture. So are you sort of trying through your art to cross the boundaries and to challenge like this division?
absolutely. I've always been very intrigued in crossing boundaries between whatever, and so whether it was high art and low art in terms of materials, whether it was 2 dimension and 3 dimension, whether it was painting and what I'm doing, I'm always trying to flex the boundaries and see what's in there, because when you the funny thing is, when I'm limited in the materials that I work with, and when I'm limited in my process, that's when I do best, because then I can actually dig deeper. And when I dig deeper, then I can explore the boundaries and also enlarge the boundaries a bit, because there's always room for, navigation, I think. And that's the interesting thing.
Yeah. And what have painting and sculpture taught you, like in your process?
Oh, wow.
What are you taking from both of them?
I think what painting has taught me, a lot about color, and I think maybe the artist that taught me about color the most is not a painter, but it's a sculptor. So I'm making no sense at all right now. But that's Richard Serra, and Richard Serra has this wonderful video. I saw it in New York at the MoMA, and actually he's holding color cards, and he's switching the color cards, so you only see the color, and then every 3 or 4 seconds you see his big greasy fingers, and then they take another card, and so you see red, and then blue, and then green, and as soon as your eye adjusts to the other colors, there's another color card again, and that's when I learned that colors have these different vibrations when they enter your eyeballs, and that as soon as you see another color, you have to adjust. But as soon as you see, for instance, blue after green, then of course there's going to be a little green in the blue. So that's when I saw that colors aren't fixed either. And so back to your question, what did they teach me? I think so. Both a sculptor and painting taught me a lot about the colors, really, and also about, and I think that's what I take away from sculpting, is of course the room and the direction that a work manifests. So, for instance, when you look at a sculpture, it holds a certain impact, or it holds a certain it takes up space in a space, and that's what I think is interesting. And I think it was Frank Stella who said, if a painting falls off the wall, it becomes sculpture. And so I'm now trying to figure out, to what degree, to what extension can I stretch my work before it falls off the wall and it becomes a sculpture.
Yes. Yes, it does. It does. Yeah, also because I've seen the work in your solo exhibition at the Bard Gallery that really extends, the one that extended to the wall. So it's not on the canvas anymore. It takes up the space itself.
It enters your space as a viewer.
Yes.
It's on the floor and it's on the wall, and I mean, it can go anywhere, but of course you have to limit yourself. But yeah, that's what I like. There's as soon as people give me limitations or boundaries, that's when I try to cross them, because that's what I
Yeah. So maybe this connects also to a certain level to street art as well.
Yeah,
right,
true.
because it's you have this strong visual characteristic from street art, and also using the wall itself as a canvas.
That's what I like about street art. It has a no-nonsense approach. It is very autonomous. I think street art in general is underrated. I think as soon as people see street art, then they say, "Oh, well, it's not real art because but it's not. I think street art is very is very valuable as well, and then also because, and that's something that my work does not really have. I think because of the societal criticism that street art has, I think it's very powerful. Like it can really bring forth a message that, or bring across a message that no other medium can do as well. So I really like the rough aspect of street art and I think I'm searching for the word now, but it's like it's very unconventional and it doesn't really it's very autonomous.
Yeah, and it also speaks for itself. I think like also your works do. There's this immediate impact once you see them. Yeah, and sorry if you wanted to add. I just am very curious about the process behind your works. So how does it work? Do you plan? Do you sketch it out, or is it just spontaneous?
I do actually. I have a sketch here. So this was not rehearsed, right? But actually, when I make murals, then I draw sketches, because when I started out doing murals, I was sometimes I don't know, like sometimes overwhelmed by the scale or the size of a wall, right? So then I think one or two times I was too overwhelmed. So then I thought, well, I have to plan this. I have to prepare this well. So whenever I do a mural, I make a sketch of a vision of something that I want to get across. So sometimes it can be an atmosphere, it can be a mood, it can be very formal about colors and compositions. So this one I made for Garage Rotterdam, Garage. And this was actually on a wall 9 meters wide and 3 meters high. And I make it in my studio, and then I look at the colors and the proportions, and I take it with me to the location, and then I just go build it up. I don't really measure, so I look at the sketch, and then I sort of like I guess, like if it's all right like this, and should I maybe adjust here and there, and so that's what I do. That's what I do there. When I work with my works on debond panel, then it's basically very intuitive. So I look at the colors that I have in my studio, and sometimes the one color appeals to me, and then I think, well, what can I do to maybe work this one out? And the weird thing is that the last year, because of COVID, I found out that a very colorful palette, or the colors that I used to work with, are very bright. It requires a lot of energy to actually take all these colors in, because of the intensity of the color. So for me, it took a lot of energy to actually work with my own color palette. And then I thought that was very interesting, because I just noticed that because of COVID, the whole world sort of like dropped in energy. And so I couldn't really cope with my color scheme anymore. And I thought, well, this is interesting. Now, how can I work with my color palette and then maybe tone down a bit of the colors that I'm working with? So for instance, I used to work with pink a lot, or minty green, or with all very bright colors.
Yes.
And so now I'm trying to figure out, how can I use these colors and maybe tone them down to a certain level of intensity that I can cope with them better. And that's when I started using transparent foil. So I apply transparent foil over a dark background, for instance, so that you still have the color pigmentation of yellow, for instance, but because it's a black or a dark blue or a petro background, it sort of like it takes away some of the intensity of the color. I'm now looking at trying to work with these colors and see how I can present them so that for me they are acceptable, or that I can live with it. So it's completely weird, and maybe it's
Yeah.
very intuitive, but that's, I don't know. Like, and I was then, and I mentioned her again, Stella Verbild. I was talking to her, and she sort of like felt the same, because it's such it's been such a weird time, and then it sort of changes how you perceive the world around you, and how you perceive colors and forms and everything.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. How difficult is it to use that material? Because I guess it's an adhesive foil, and you have a sort of margin of error with it.
Well, there's no time for error. Or
Yeah.
time, but there's no room for error. So no, it requires a certain calmness and a certain patience. So when I'm too hectic in my head, then it's not going to work. So I have to be calm to a certain degree, and it, well, with smaller works, they don't take up that much time. I think maybe 2 hours or so. But the larger works, they can take up 4, 5, 6 hours, because I apply the foil with a soft cloth,
Mm-hmm.
and I can only apply it like 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter, because I'm sort of like, I lost the word. Like I brush it.
Yes. So sort of flattening it out.
Yeah, exactly. And so yeah, and that can take a long time. But then again, so the smaller works, they are that's a bit easier. And sometimes, I don't know, like, I like to think of there's little brains in the tips of my finger. So sometimes the brains are very alive, and they can do the job. But sometimes they're asleep. I don't know. Like, then the fingertips don't work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I notice when I'm in my studio, and like I don't grip it well, then I don't know. Like, it's sort of like a lost call. And then also sometimes I have an idea in my head of what I want to do, and then of course it doesn't work out that way, or the work itself becomes not as interesting as I thought it would be. So then I destroy it again, and then yeah.
Mm-hmm. And do viewers get that it's tape, or do you see that they're often a tape or a foil, or do they often wonder, like, what is it? Because I think there's this interesting aspect in your works where you see them and you don't immediately grasp what the material really is. So you're there and you wonder what it really is. So that's also
I think,
interesting.
Yeah, I think that for a lot of people, the funny thing is, I've been hearing this for 12 years now since I'm doing this. People say, I've never seen anything like this.
Yes.
It's been with me for 12 years now, so that's kind of funny. But no, I think people are curious, like, what am I looking at? Because I think it's metallic, or it's steel, or it's something else. Yeah, and so they pinch the foil, but they're not allowed to, because then you ruin it.
Yeah.
So it's yeah. So yeah, I still get that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it has this very sculptural characteristic to it. Yeah,
Exactly.
like you said, almost metallic and shiny.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And there was a lady last year, she came to an exhibition. She said, they look so yummy, like I want to lick them.
Yeah.
I thought that was really, I don't know, like, this is, I don't get reactions like that much often, but it's...
Yeah. Yeah. And what about the longevity of the material itself? Because you were talking about not touching it because it might be ruined.
Yeah. I can only answer that for tape, because I've worked with tape for 12 years now, and maybe 13 years already. So it's the oldest work that I have still looks good. I do see that, for instance, white tape sometimes becomes a bit transparent. But I mean, in terms of adhesiveness, or color, or like the luster, it holds itself very well. And also because I worked with a restaurateur, like someone who restores
Yes.
art, Marianne Visser in The Hague, and she mentioned when we met when I was just starting off, and she actually did some research for me, and then she found out that some tapes are actually meant to dissolve. So for instance, the tapes that you buy at the Baumarkt in Gamma or Praxis, they're meant to dissolve. So they have this little thingy in there that actually weigh the tape so that it just dissolves better. Well, I didn't know that. So I immediately stopped working with that tape and I switched to Nishiban, which is a Japanese brand, and that works really well because it has all these nylon threads in there, and then the tape itself is of better quality. So I think that's, if for anyone wanting to use tape, go for Nishiban. And then when I started working with foil, so I've been working with foil for 5 or 6 years now, that holds itself also very well. I don't see any funny things there happening, but I mean, then, you know, I've only been working for 5 years, so I don't know that much about foil, but I do know that once you work with different types of whatever material, whether it's paint or tape or foil, at some point you get a 6 or 7 or 8 sense about the quality of the material that you work with. So as soon as I enroll some of the foil, I know what I can do with it and if it's going to last or hold itself well or not. And so then certain brands I have to discard because it's too flimsy or it's too fragile, and then now I have a couple of brands that I really like because I know that they're strong and that they hold well and that the luster is good, etc., etc.
Yeah, I think it's also a interesting, so like longevity is an interesting characteristic when you do research on materials because it shows you how they transform over time or due to
longevity in general is interesting because what I really like, or what I didn't like when I was in school, me that, you know, you have to make art that has eternity value, like it value of still existing, being around over 100, 200. I always thought that was such a lot of bullshit because if it's not within your process, if it's not within your area of interest, then you should be allowed to make other choices to use other materials that may not last as long as oil, but are still as interesting to explore. So so in terms of longevity, that's why I also take down the murals after I finish. I create murals, I leave them there for a month, or as long as the exhibition is up, and then I remove them because I think that actually adds some value to the work being there. Like everything is, in the end, everything is temporary in life. So by heightening the temporarity of the work, that's how I want to, I don't know, like that's what I think is extra interesting. It's completely legitimate to make art that maybe last 24 hours, a week, a month, I don't know, like it's completely legitimate.
Yeah, and it also, I think, leads to appreciating the work of art more.
Exactly. Because everything is digital right now.
Yeah.
And of course, thank God for digital, because that's why, you know, why we're doing this. But on the other hand, I think there's an increased interest in craftsmanship and craftsmanship for the time being. If you're there and if you see the work, then it has heightened value or added value as to when it's online and you can still see it after 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, talking about this, what about materiality and this aspect of volume and dimensionality in this digital age?
Yeah.
What about it? Because it definitely yeah, we're living in this digital world. Everything is two-dimensional. So how do you bring your exploration on materiality in the digital world?
No, I think it's very interesting that maybe 80% of the people who know my work will only know it from online. So that's why I think every artist should have very proper registration of their work, because most of the people will not see your work in person or physically. And then everything being digital, yes. If you look at photography, then it becomes quite flat, even though you can work your way around it. But I don't know. Like, I always try to maybe create some videos every now and then to show, walk around the work, so that you get a better impression of it. But I think what you see online is different from when you see it in person.
Yeah, of course.
It's an extra challenge for everyone, like whether you're a designer or an artist or a fashion designer. Like, I like to think everyone's a maker, right? Because I think all these labels are rubbish. So for all makers, it's an extra challenge to sort of like present your work online.
And I think with your work, you can easily navigate also the two worlds, because you have both aspects of like exploring three-dimensionality, but then also this very, I think, figurative aspect in your work.
I think I hadn't really thought of I know that presenting my work online is a challenge, because when you see it up front, then it becomes something else. So when it's online, or when it's on digital pictures, and it's something else. I don't know. It's something that you always have to keep in mind, and that's why I also work with good photographers like Jeroen Arians. He's a very good photographer in actually grasping the material aspect of the work, and bringing about the best of what the material has in itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And will you stay faithful to foil, or are you currently exploring maybe other materials?
I am now working with the Elliot Collective. They're young fashion designers, and I'm trying to explore the boundaries between the disciplines between visual art and fashion, because I've always been very interested in fashion, and so now I'm trying to see to what extent we can stretch my art into their world of fashion, and vice versa. So yeah, it might broaden to fabric, but I don't know. Like, it's something that I want to explore, because but then again, I'm really fond of tape and foil, so I don't see it switching anytime soon.
Yeah. And how does, for example, a typical day in your atelier look like on a day-to-day basis?
Well, for instance, if I work on my panels, and I go to my studio, I have a coffee, I talk to my studio mate, then I look at the colors that I have, and I don't know, like, sometimes you feel this sometimes I feel impatient, and I want to make as much as possible, and then sometimes I'm a bit more relaxed, and I take my time, and then I try to combine the foils that I think are interesting. And maybe do some sketches, do some extra color investigations, and see what colors work really well. I don't know, and then I guess it's not that exciting in the end in my studio.
Yeah, I guess it's
there's not a lot of circus going on. It's just me, working away.
Yeah, I guess it's also a lot of experimentation and.
Yeah, and then what I really like is exploring my work through the eyes of other makers. So I do studio visits quite often. I do collaborations quite often, and I, because when you do collaborations, then it teaches you an awful lot about other people's work, your own work, your process. So that's what I really, really like.
Are there any collaborations that you're kind of really proud of the outcome, or that maybe challenged your work?
Well, I'm really happy to be able to explore the boundary between my work and the fashion, for instance, right now. So that's what I'm really happy about. I'm really happy about a lot of exhibitions that I did where I don't know, like, when you're exhibiting together with other artists, you're always trying to, see how your work, like what kind of dialogue there is between the works. So in that respect, I've worked with Sander Reigert, for instance, who is a great materialist when it comes to paint. Like he adds layer after layer after layer after layer of paint, and then it becomes sculptural in its own. So we did some exhibitions together, and then you learn from each other. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's the top of my head right now.
Yeah. So this leads me, to the final question, maybe to wrap up the whole conversation. And what is material for you? Could you find a few adjectives or a few words that sum it up?
I think a material, and then in general sense, I think material can be an enormous source of consolation, and I mean that in terms of when I touch material, when I consolation and communication maybe also, because when you touch material, you you are transported into this other world. Like, for instance, when you touch a marble sculpture, or when I touch, for instance, the fabric of May Engelgeer, which I'm maybe not allowed to touch, but if you touch it, or we have a brilliant carpet here by Lisanne Vrijsen. When you touch the work, you're transported into another world, and I'm at least transported into the fabric, of course, but also the wonders of the making of the fabric and the whole process behind it, and the quality that the fabric has. So I think it's transportation, communication, and also a sense of consolation, because I don't know, like it does something for me.
Yes. Yeah, and it has every material has these different qualities that, you said, bring you somewhere, or also evoke emotions. And
exactly, it evokes emotions. It takes you in your mind. It takes you places. Yeah. And I'm not saying countries, but just, I don't know, like places. It takes you to fancy.
Yeah, so I would say that sums it perfectly up. So I hope, we would be all able to see your works in real person very soon.
I have, and I'm really proud to announce that Galerie Bart is taking my work and works by Marleen Sleewits to Art Rotterdam this July. So if anyone's listening, please come to Art Rotterdam. And so that's one thing that I'm really proud of. And so maybe see you there.
Great. Yes, I hope by July we will be able to. But yes, thank you in this wonderful exploration of tape, of foil, and of your work. And yes, thank you. And
thank you.
See you.